As a boot collector, the more I'm around the hobby, the more I'm drawn to quirky boots that may not check all the normal heritage boot check boxes. That's not to say I think quirky boots are better than your average heritage boot. It's just sometimes it's fun to go off script. And I think today is one of those days where we are going to go off script. I recently had the opportunity to try out a boot from Duckfeet, or Duckfeet USA is their US arm. And so I jumped at that opportunity. I thought their lineup was really cool, really quirky. Ended up picking the Roskilde boot. Looks like Roskilde, but the website says it's Roskilde. And I think it's probably the most traditional of their offerings, looking more like a regular Chelsea boot. They have a lot of other cool stuff, though, that might have fur in it or really other things like that. So I'm obviously going to leave a link in the description. Go check them out because they just have some really neat stuff, both for men and for women. This particular boot does come in 7 different colorways. I went with the Cocoa, as I mentioned. And they do have 2 options that have red elastic goring. And I almost went for the Cocoa with the red, but even for me, that's probably a little bit too much whimsy. But here we are. Please stick around. I'm going to tell you what I like about the boot, what I don't like, maybe what I would change, and then whether or not you should pick up a pair of these for yourself. I'm Patrick, and this is Rocky Mountain Style. To start out, let's chat a little bit about the company Duckfeet. So Duckfeet, of course, is a Danish company, as you may be able to tell by the flag here. And for those of you that are geopolitically challenged, that is the flag of Denmark. And if you are from Denmark, you are Danish. So Duckfeet's a Danish company. They've been around for a little over 40 years. Their website doesn't say what exact year they were founded, but they've been handcrafting all manner of footwear for both men and women. Their main aim is just to produce footwear that's simple and functional. And I think that fits with the Danish ethos. And again, like I mentioned, this particular Chelsea is, in my opinion, the most traditional looking boot from their lineup. So what you get obviously is a laceless design with elastic goring and, from the side view, a somewhat traditional shape. They're stitched down construction and they certainly can be resoled if the crepe outsole wears down, if you so desire. And speaking of the crepe outsole, it's a natural crepe rubber. I find it to be really comfortable. I like how it feels. But as far as those kinds of outsoles go, it seems pretty standard for that type. They've got a TerraCare leather that they use for these boots. It's from a company in Germany. It's a nice feeling natural leather. I had to actually look up if it was some sort of a vegan leather, just because of the branding. I wasn't familiar with it, but it's not. It's real, veg tan leather. I think it's just really sustainably made, which is, what the company TerraCare from Germany is all about. But yeah, feel free to look that up if you want for a little more info. The midsole is a really nice veg tan piece that really looks up to the task of getting that imprint from your foot over time. And of course, the namesake of the company, Duckfeet. When you look top down, they kind of look like the foot of a duck. They're very wide. They get wider and wider as the boot goes on. You can probably even see it better from looking at the sole. They start getting wider from this point here. They don't really get narrower until it's time to come back and complete the toe. So kind of interesting. All right, let's talk about what I like. So I think the first thing that I like is just the quirkiness of the boot. Like I mentioned in the intro, sometimes I just feel like being quirky. You can only wear big, heavy heritage boots so often. Maybe some of you guys like to wear those every single day, but I like to pull something out of the closet every so often that people don't expect, that, fosters conversation or that makes people look twice. I think these really hit that, mostly because, one, they're not, even though they are a Chelsea, they're not super traditional. They're not a dressy Chelsea by any means. You've got that Danish flag on the side there, which sort of draws people's attention with that bright pop of red and white. And just the fact that you've got the crepe rubber outsole, the way the panels are stitched together, just a quirky looking boot, right? So for me, that's a positive. Another thing I like is the overall comfort. The initial comfort in these is really high. You put them on and you feel half barefoot in a way, but the crepe outsole gives you plenty of cushioning when you're walking, and they're just easy on, easy off. I have a 42 in these, European sizing. I've got a 42, which corresponds to sort of like 9.5 to 10. They're not tight on me at all. I think a 41 probably would have been worse, but a 42 is definitely not small, and I probably could have gone with a 41.5 if there was such a thing, but there's not. So Size-wise, I'm generally 10 to 10.5 on the Brannick. Most boots I buy are a 10. Every once in a while I dip into a 9.5, and sometimes based on the company I go up to a 10.5. So with these, I was a 42 based on those parameters I just gave you. So use that however you will. And another thing I like is just the simplicity of them. They're not trying to be anything they're not. They're not claiming to be anything that they're not. They're just a boot that's made by a company that is interested in taking care of the environment and providing simple boots for people that want simple boots. So I appreciate that when a company knows what it's about and offers a product that is indicative of that company. All right, what do I not like about the boots? So this is perhaps something, and I gotta pick the boot up for this. This is perhaps something that is unique to my foot shape, I don't know. But if you consider the shape, the fact that the boots, sort of start at their narrowest here and get wider as they go up, you don't have as much curving back in near the top. So your foot, the front part of your foot's not hugged like this. It's more like this. So when you have a foot-shaped object inside here and you're walking forward, your foot has a tendency to slide forward because there's not leather wrapping around the natural shape of your foot to hold it in place. Now, that's generally not too big of an issue, but with some socks I have, there's not much friction between the insole material, which is just sort of like, natural sort of thin leather type of a thing. And so the socks, they'll end up sliding forward like this as I walk. And what that does is it makes my big toe hit right here on the inside. That's the first line of resistance between anything on my foot and the boot. So my big toe will hit right here, and it was starting to push down on my toenail into my big toe a little bit, and it was a little bit uncomfortable. So I read through on the website, and they said, obviously boots need to break in sometimes, but specifically they said you could put a little conditioner on the front and then just sort of do this, just sort of press down, and it'll help get rid of some of that stiffness and some of that discomfort. So I did that. I spent, a long time for a couple of days just sort of doing this, and yeah, more or less went away. I mean, it's still there a little bit, but now when I wear them, I don't really notice it anymore. There's no pain, but just something to be aware of that could happen to you when you first have them. So I have that under the I don't like section, but really I think it's just a byproduct of the design. There's nothing wrong with the boot per se. That's just how they are. So I wanted to make sure you were aware of that. And the next thing that not a huge fan of, I'd probably change it if it was up to me, but I don't hate it, is usually I like contrast stitching, but with this particular panel right here, it just seems like a little bit much. It almost to me pulls the eye away from the overall shape of the Chelsea and draws your attention right here, to the instep, which, is fine. And I know that it's, this is the way it's put together. So even with a non-contrasting stitch, you'd still see that. But I think this would probably be a little bit sleeker of a boot and probably a little better overall if you had some tonal stitching instead of that contrast stitching. Okay, so we're at the end now. Should you buy these boots? Well, as with any product, if you like something, if you think it'll make you feel good about yourself, if you think it'll make your feet comfortable, then you should definitely give it a try. So these, for me, the way I'm using them is basically my breaking in boots, break boot, right? So whenever my feet need a break from breaking in boots, whenever the breaking's going bad, that was a terrible joke, I'll put these on and give my feet a little bit of a break, and it really helps. The lack of the defined arch support, the fact that your toes can freely move as big as they want to be, it really just helps things get a little bit better a little bit quicker. So if that's something that you're interested in, I think there's probably a good chance that these may be good for you. All right, that's it for today. If you have any questions, as always, leave them in the comments below and I'll answer them. Also want to give a shout out and a big thank you to all my patrons. I recently started a Patreon page. It's one way you can support the channel. But in addition, I'm giving quite a bit of value back, I think. There's lots of different perks, including cool giveaways. The giveaway we have coming up in April is going to be a $100 gift card to Caswell Boot Company. So if you're interested in stuff like that, head over to patreon.com/RockyMountainStyle, and you can check out those tiers. I have a pretty active Discord server. If you're interested in that, you can find the Discord info on the Patreon page as well, or you can just ask me in the comments or an email, or ask some of the other commenters. But yeah, that's it. Thanks a lot. Have a wonderful day, everybody.